If you miss just one council tax payment, within 6 weeks, it can lead to debt collectors at your door, bailiffs at your door, which can have a devastating impact on mental health.
Analysis has shown that around 1 in 10 people with mental health issues are behind on their council tax. One of them is Michael. His mental trauma following a motorbike accident a few years ago was badly impacted as he fell into council tax arrears. Honestly, I think the scale of this problem is shocking. It's Mental Health Awareness Week. It is particularly impacting people with mental health problems. But I can imagine for many other people who thought they were pretty strong, getting this kind of action escalating so quickly could be triggering other issues.
Well, the two are symbiotic. You're 3 times more likely to be in crisis debt if you've got a mental health problem than everybody else. That's why I have my charity, the Money and Mental Health Policy Institute, that deals with this. I want to explain why I think council tax debt collection practices are so bad and so aggressive and so rapid they would make banks blush. Right, if you have a debt with a bank, they, under the Consumer Duty, have to be supportive and try and help you deal with it, and then to do really hardcore action, it would take 6 months to a year. I want to read you the schedule that the majority of councils use if you miss a payment.
Okay.
Within 3 weeks of missing a council tax payment, you can be hit with a final notice from the local authority requiring you to pay your full annual council tax bill within 7 days. So 3 weeks, and then you've got to pay within 7 days of the year. So how you can pay a year's council tax if you can't pay a month, I don't know. If you fail to pay the full annual bill within a week, so we're now on week 4, the council can apply to take your case to court to ask for a liability order, a letter that lets them take much more aggressive forms of debt collection, including sending in the bailiffs. Your case can be heard 14 days later. After that point, so 6 weeks, your debt can be passed on to bailiffs, which is 6 weeks after the first missed payment. Banks, we would be talking 6 months to a year, and they would have to come in and try and help you first. It is a completely different system, and that rapidity of debt collection is both panic-inducing, and let's remember, you're more likely to be in council tax debt if you've got mental health issues than everybody else, and it is a large number of people. It is panic-inducing, and it has no time for you to... Whatever the problem was that meant you couldn't pay, what are you going to sort out within 6 weeks when bailiffs are knocking at your door for the whole year?
Well, Michael, this must sound very familiar to you. You had a motorbike accident which caused PTSD back in 2021. What happened next with your council tax?
Yeah, so I actually had a demand for the full year's payment whilst I was still in hospital, waiting for a final operation. And then it just escalated and escalated, more and more charges. So when you can't pay the month, like you said, they were demanding the full year plus $250 for sending it to the bailiffs, and then £60 for every time they came and put a letter through the door.
What did it do to your head at that point?
It was a struggle. It was tough because you feel pressured to pay it. The bailiffs offer no relief, no negotiation, and you just feel trapped and stuck, like no way out.
What did you do in that situation? Because you're already fragile, you're undergoing treatment in hospital, you're trying to recover, clearly suffering. Were you able to talk to the council or to the bailiffs?
Initially, I tried the bailiffs.
Right.
Didn't go very well. They offered no solutions. And eventually, I went through the council, and then they instructed the bailiffs to carry out the offer that I had initially made, and I was told wasn't possible.
But plus the 250 quid in it, liability order, plus the £60 for each time you... So the fact that the bailiffs didn't sort it and you went later meant you owed more anyway, I presume?
Yes, yeah, definitely, yeah.
How was it resolved?
I'm still paying it. I'm still paying it. At one point, I was paying about £600 a month in council tax.
And the original amount of council tax would have been?
Probably £1,000 for the year.
Martin, I'm speechless.
Well, Michael, I'm pleased to say, went to one of the non-profit debt counselling agencies, Step Change. There's also Citizens Advice, National Debt Line. If you're struggling with debt, speak to them as quickly as possible, get advice on what you can do in your situation. They've been good, I presume.
Fantastic, yeah. Fantastic.
And that gives you... I mean, it's not a great situation, but at least you're handling it now.
Yeah, I'm getting on top of it. It's pretty much Almost gone. End of the year, it'll be sorted.
I'm very pleased to hear that. But what you have to understand, and the reason I'm so vociferous about this, the rapidity and the rapaciousness of the debt collection for constituents, far more than a customer for a company would be, is what puts the problem. He's in hospital, but he's only got 6 weeks from missing one payment to bailiffs. And that just isn't enough time. If you've lost somebody, you know, if a partner has died and you're in the middle and you haven't paid your council tax bill, you've suddenly got bailiffs at your door. And it is such an aggressive form of debt collection that we need things to change. That no other form of debt collection has that power and that speed to collect. And there are reasons for that, because protections are put in place on consumer debt so that people are able to get themselves out of it, to deal, to be able to talk to somebody and say, hey, I could pay you. But councils aren't gaining extra money because of this. They're just putting people into catastrophic financial situations.
Yeah. Michael, there are a few things that you did which I think are useful for people to know. One of which is you went with Martin's advice, although I'm not sure it was Martin who gave you that advice, which is you don't let the bailiffs in. Yeah.
I actually had nothing to offer them at the time anyway. So even if they came in, there was nothing for them to take. But yeah, it was quite lucky because I lived in a flat. So it was keep all the doors shut, windows shut. I put my bike in a friend's garage. Yeah. So everything was away and untouchable.
Yeah. There are a few things that I would like to see done. One, I'd like the rules to be changed so they can't collect debt as quickly as possible, as they can do. Two, I'd like to see them not to be able to charge the high amounts for liability orders, the added charges that are disproportionate to the actual cost. And three, I would just love to say, if you're a local councillor out there and you're watching right now, many of you are the type of people who will get involved in your community and complain about loan sharks and complain about horrible commercial debt collection. Have a look at what your own council is doing and see whether you're happy with that.
Michael, thank you for coming in to talk about this. It's really important. As I said earlier on the programme, that anyone who's in this situation knows they're not alone. I think sometimes you can feel like you're the only one it's happening to.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
And so sharing your experience is so helpful for people. Thank you so much. The Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government says we strongly expect councils to behave sympathetically when collecting tax. This government will consult on improving the council tax collection system to make it fairer.
Good to hear.
Have you spoken to government?
I sometimes have private meetings with senior people on issues that I'm not allowed to talk about. This is one of the things at the top of my agenda, so you can probably make assumptions yourself.
Yeah, and this is not party political. This is whoever's in government.
Whoever's in government, whoever's in the council. This is just, it's a legacy system that needs to be fixed. Totally. We don't collect debts this way in other sectors anymore. Nope. We're still doing council tax.
Rob on X says, Martin, I'm a pensioner. Octopus are trying to pressurise me into signing a fixed deal. This is energy bills.
Energy, yeah.
As my current deal ends at the end of June. What should he do?
Well, first thing to say is if you're on a fixed deal, you're allowed to move exit penalty 3 within the last 50 days, so 49 days and less from the end of the fix. They can't charge you exit penalties. Octopus tend not to have early exit penalties anyway. Look, so people need to understand there's been much talk about the energy price cap, which is the default you'll go to when your fix ends and default most people on, is going to drop in July. It will. The latest predictions that came out yesterday, it's not going to drop by quite as much as people have been saying. We were hearing it drop 9%. Then now the range is 6 to 8%, which has basically put us back to where we were in January. Remember, it went up 10% in October, 1% in January and 6% in April. So we'll just go back to January. It's still going to be pretty high. The cheapest fixes on the market are... So you've got the current price cap going to drop by 8% in January. The cheapest fixes right now are 18% below the current price cap. Now, the price cap, even when it goes down, is now thought it might go a little down after that, but then go back up. So if the predictions are right, a cheap fix now will save you substantially over the next year, even though prices are coming down in July. And lots of people think they should wait to do it. No, because fixed prices have nothing to do with the price cap. So I don't know whether the Octopus fix you're being offered is a good deal or not. I'd go onto a comparison site and do a proper comparison to find your cheapest fix. But absolutely, if the predictions are right, the risk-averse thing to do right now is to get a cheap fix.
Are you on the price cap or a fix?
I've got an agent, a company that switches me all the time.
Oh,
yeah.
OK.
And
so the best fix?
Yeah.
I'm on a fix. But I always I just like it, because it is, what do you do? It is almost, sometimes it feels like you want to toss a coin. Heads or tails.
There is a caveat, if the predictions are right, but the predictions tend to be pretty decent, although, of course, major worldwide global economic changes, you know, we've got a big orange fella in the White House who's a bit unpredictable, and that can change things in future. This is based on what we know at the moment. OK,
Linda on Instagram has asked, why is there an old pension and a new pension, regardless of the year we were born?
It's not regardless of the year you were born. It's very specific about when you were born. The new state pension came in on the 6th of April 2016. Everybody who got to state pension age after that is on the new pension. Everyone who hit state pension age after that is before that. It's a big political issue here. Whenever the government quotes what they've increased the state pension by, they talk about the new state pension, which is now £230 and 25p for a single pensioner, if you get the full state pension, which not everybody does. Lots of people don't. 2/3 of state pensioners are not on the new state pension. 2/3, the majority, are on the old state pension, of which it's £176.45. There's also an additional element people can get. So when they talk about the new state pension, they're actually talking about a minority pension for most people, and the amount quoted is only those who've got enough national insurance years for the full amount, which many don't, which is why there's the whole pension credit and winter fuel payment, because pension credit it's the top-up if you don't get the full state pension, and that's what you have to get winter fuel payment, but 700,000 people don't claim, and I'll be asking the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster about that when he comes on later, and why they're allowing some of the poorest pensioners in the country not to get winter fuel payment when they know they fit the eligibility criteria.
Did you know that still 700,000 pensioners who are eligible for pension credit and the winter fuel payment still don't claim?
So many people don't claim their full entitlement of benefits because of pride, or because it's too complicated, or because they don't know how to.
It's how the government saves money.
It does.
It makes means testing mean. And it's all,
if you do the calculation, if everybody who claims pension credit claimed it, it would cost far more than the saving in winter fuel allowance. So that must have been factored into the calculations, that they assumed people wouldn't claim it. That will have been locked in to the calculation.
How cynical is that?
Martin, the energy companies have a lot of our money, don't they?
Well, it said they are sitting on £3 billion of our credit. This is specifically for people who are on monthly direct debit. And before I start anything, when you're going to check this, you need to make sure either you're on a working smart meter. We've talked about the word working and smart meters in the past. Not a lot don't work. Or that you've done meter readings before you look at your account. But this is all about the energy direct debit cycle. I'm going to have to jump across because I've got some graphs. Let's take a look at this.
Must be serious.
So here's the main one. Right. So, this is what happens throughout the year. This is for someone under zero balance on the 1st of January. What happens, you see, your monthly direct debit is paid at an even amount across the year, so that in the high-use months, you're paying less than you're actually using, and in the low months, you're paying more than you're using, so it all spreads out. So if we see someone with a zero balance in January, you'll see you either start to build up the debt or use up your credit, going down and down and down until roughly this point. Now. This is the lowest point in the year. So the point when you should either be in the most debt or have the least amount of energy credit. After this point, because we go into the summer and you're using less and you're paying the same amount, you start to either reduce your debt and build up credit. It maxes out in November, and then the cycle starts again. Now, just to lobby this in, because it depends where you are, a couple more quick graphs for you here. If you were to have zero balance in May, exactly right now, then your pattern would be you build up credit throughout the year, maxes in November, then you use it all up. And if you were to start in November, then you would build up debt throughout the year. You would be at the bottom in May and build it all up. What do all these graphs have in common? The bottom point, the point where you either have the most debt or the minimum credit, is today, which means if you go and check you're in credit and you have substantial credit on your monthly direct debit energy account right now, you have too much and you should be asking for it back. That's why we're doing it today. That's the point.
And what should you do if that's the case?
Here's my rough rule of thumb, because there are vagaries here, and the whole point of monthly direct debit is it's a budgeting tool to spread out your usage. It's never going to be perfect. My rule of thumb, and I can't do it by an amount because it all depends on the proportions of how much you pay. If you have more than a month and a half worth of direct debit in credit right now, so let's say your direct debit's £200 and you're £500 in credit, I'd be asking for 200 quid of that back, anything above a month and a half. I'd be getting in touch with my energy firm. I'd be saying, now, first of all, you need to make sure your direct debit's right and you've done your meter reading. And I'd be saying to them, you have too much of my credit and I would like that cash back in my bank account, not in your bank account, because I shouldn't have that much credit right now. because this is the bottom of the energy direct debit cycle. You understand the timing?
Yes.
You understand why it's now?
Yes.
Yeah.
What if they say no?
Well, under Condition 27 of the Gas and Electricity Licensing Act, you have a right for a fair direct debit that they should justify to you if it's too high, and they should not keep an excess amount of your credit. So if you have done your research properly and you have checked all this out and they have too much of your credit, then I would make a formal complaint to them for the money back. And if they refuse to give you your money back, I would take them to the free Energy Ombudsman Service and ask for your credit back. And I'd also ask for a bit of compensation for the time and hassle, because they're not giving you your money back when you should be asking for your money back. I mean, most firms do well. I think I've got a quote here of somebody who did it just to inspire people. This was from Diane, who emailed, thanks to you, thank you, Diane, I discovered I was £1,000 in credit. I did decide to leave £200 just in case. I think that's right. I'd always leave a little bit of a buffer just in case, as long as the direct debit is right. I'm now looking forward to a cheeky little holiday, which I wouldn't normally have been able to afford. And Liz, taking your advice, I was about £800 in credit. I emailed Octopus for a £500 refund. They didn't hesitate or quibble, just refunded the money immediately. And there are direct debit calculators online where you can check if your direct debit is roughly fair. And let's remember, the energy price cap is due to drop in July by a predicted 6 to 8%. They don't take that into account, but in a way that gives you even more wriggle room, right? Because you're going to what you're paying now will probably be slightly less from July if you're on an energy price cap tariff.
And you're talking about monthly direct debit.
Yeah.
Is there another way to pay which works out better and doesn't hand over so much of our money to the companies that they can then earn the interest on?
OK, so the very cheapest way to pay on the price cap is prepay. You may be surprised to hear. Prepay is the cheapest form of payment now. It's only marginally cheaper than direct debit. The only problem with prepay is unless you're on smart prepay, there are no tariffs you can change to. So all the cheap fixes don't exist. All the competition is on the monthly direct debit sector. And the cheapest prices, if you go and get a fix, are far cheaper than being on the price cap. Now, some people do say to me, I hate the monthly direct debit thing. I just want to pay for what I use. And what they do is they go to payment in receipt of bills, which is where basically you get a bill and then you pay the money. Yeah. That's about 7% more expensive than direct debit. There is a sweet spot, though, on some firms' offer. It's called variable direct debit. Now, with variable direct debit, if it's offered, it works a bit like payment in receipt of bills in that they bill you for the amount that you use, but then they automatically take that amount by direct debit rather than you having to give them the money. And if you're on variable direct debit, you get the same rate as monthly direct debit, so you're not paying the 7% premium. So if you're one of those people who hate monthly direct debit, personally I think it's a good budgeting tool. The problem is it doesn't always work right. But if you want, then don't go to payment in receipt of bills, go to variable direct debit if it's offered, and that's the way to do it. But monthly direct debit, you know, if you're going to pay variable direct debit, be prepared to have big cash flow coming in the middle of winter because you've got big bills when it's cold.
Good point. Terry's emailed in, I moved in August last year and opted for a one-year fixed deal with OVO for both gas and electricity. This month's direct debit has increased by £40. I thought fixed meant no changes. How can they do this? No.
What a fixed means is the rate that you pay, the rate they are charging for standing charges and the unit rate for each unit of gas and electricity you use is fixed. That's the total you will pay. Your direct debit is based on an estimate of your usage over the year. So if, for example, you've built up too much debt because they have estimated your usage is a bit lower than you're actually using, they can increase the direct debit, the amount they're asking for, to get it right, even on a fix. It's the rates that you're charged that are fixed, not the amount. Because clearly, let's make it absurd. If you suddenly treble the amount that you're using, the fact that your rate is fixed, you're still going to have to pay more money so they could put the direct debit up. So what I would be doing is I'd checking. I mean, I presume you've built up some debt if that is happening. If you have, then it's fair. If you're massively in credit and they're doing that, I'd go to them. And under Condition 27 of the Gas and Electricity Licensing Agent rules, I would say, why are you putting my direct debit up when I am in credit? But if you're not in credit, then it's possibly fair.
Sarah said, Martin, I locked into a fixed deal in late Feb, paying £99 per calendar month for gas and electricity. With So Energy, they have increased my direct debit to £148 per calendar month. Can they do this?
Again, if it's proportionate to what you're using, go and do a calculator to do, can I do a fair direct debit online, see if that's right. Check whether you've built up debt. If they have, then yes, they can increase your direct debit if the direct debit is set too low. If it's not set too low, you can fight it.
And there is a win this morning for Martin Lewis and his journalism on this, on Good Morning Britain, and also with the Money and Mental Health Policy Institute, because back in November last year, your charity published this report. Council tax collection practices are so aggressive, they'd make the banks blush. Up to 2 million people with mental health problems at risk of hideous harms because of the unique and aggressive ways that councils pursue council tax debt. In the interview this morning with Pat McFadden,
they have just agreed to consult on changing the system, and the most vicious part of the system, which is within 3 weeks of missing a monthly payment, they can ask you for an annual payment.
He said that was the number one thing they're going to be consulting on.
I mean, what they should be doing is saying, oh, you've missed a payment, how can we help you? Can we signpost you to debt support, and we'll give you 3 to 6 weeks, even if it were that quick, to pay the month, and then you can get back on track and everything carries on as normal.
So the second thing he said was they're consulting on the way that councils handle this kind of
And I'll be honest,
collection.
my charity and I, we have a large policy document on what they should be doing and how to do it better already in place.
It's great to see it in action, isn't it?
It really is. And also good to hear that governments do listen.
Yes.
And that's really what it's all about. And this really it's well done to this programme and to you, Martin. I mean, I hadn't realised just
how vicious
it is. Like rackety spibs. Look at some of these councils, the way they're behaving.
They've got to get their money in, and there's always a difference between can't pay and won't pay. But if people can't pay, hitting them over the head and making them poorer and asking for a year, I mean, it's just totally counterproductive.
Yeah.
But Jim McMahon, who will do the review, was the leader of Oldham Council. He was a very innovative leader of Oldham Council. He's the one who kicked out the bailiffs because they were really overcharging people. I think he'll take it seriously because he'll have seen it from both ends.
And I have to be careful, but when I've been in and met senior members of that department, they have been very warm on this. So I think we've been campaigning for a while on this, but then Good Morning Britain this morning highlighting it and giving it the publicity that it needs, I think it's what got us over the edge. So I'm very, very happy, I'll be honest with you. It's wonderful.
It's a result.
Well, and the experiences people are sending in, you can see why people are on the edge. Dom says, I had money problems many years ago. The debt advisor said the only thing to make sure I did pay was the council tax. Linda, my name is Linda. I have breast cancer. Just recently I was in the areas with the council tax. I had a new job. I was getting on top of it. Now I've been signed off for 6 months. The council tax letters and bailiff letters keep coming. Harriet, I was in hospital for 7 months. I didn't know the council tax wasn't going out. I was sent bailiffs letters to my home. Eventually I spoke to the council. They sent letters to my hospital bed and tried sending bailiffs to my hospital bedside. Emma says, our council had a system glitch. They wrote to us to say so, but it wouldn't affect us. 8 months later, we received a court letter, a court summons. Had to pay all fees, etc. We didn't even know the payment hadn't gone through.
Bailiffs going to a hospital bed?
Honestly.
And that is brutal and inhumane.
Well, the monitor.
We did a campaign in the past so people get breathing space if they're in mental health crisis care in the NHS. But that doesn't apply to council bailiffs. That only applies to consumer financial bailiffs yet again. This is... they have their own rules and they're far tougher than anywhere else, and we need to make it so that we try and help people pay, not bash them over the head to pay when they haven't got the money.
It feels positively feudal, the system, once you explain it. And I'll admit, I was unaware quite how it operated and how vicious it could be.
This has gone under the radar for so long.
I get my head around bailiffs turning up at someone's hospital bedside.
Yeah.
What were they going to take away?
But the key thing I get from today is don't let the bailiffs in.
I agree.
They don't have a right to come in, do they, Martin? Unless they've got a specific court
order that you generally need to sign. But call one of the non-profit debt counselling agencies if you've got bailiffs at your door and ask them what to do.
Don't let them
Thank
in.
you both.
No, we're going to call you Martin if bailiffs turn up at my door. Don't worry.
Thank you very much
Thank you for having me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to get that out.
And thank you for getting in touch with your experiences as well. Next Tuesday, Martin's going to be heading to Bristol for a live summer travel special featuring all the money-saving tips you need for holidays. Alongside your co-host, Jeanette, if you're looking to cut spending without compromising on your time away, tune in at 8 p.m. on ITV1.